note that everybody is present, and we'll get started. So I'll ask for, if everybody's had an opportunity to review the meetings from last month, the minutes from last month's meeting, I'll entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of them and approve them as submitted.
So moved.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, the minutes are approved. Anybody from the public wishing to address the board on the agenda items only? I see no takers, so we'll move on to the items on the agenda. The first motion is a motion to approve all current payables for the Community Corrections Center and the prison. I trust everybody had an opportunity to review them. And if so, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. All current payables, as presented, are approved for payment. Next item is the Controller's Report. Controller DeBilio, you want to use this one?
I'll use this one, Judge, thank you. Controller's Report for the prison inmate and canteen accounts for February of 2022. The Controller's Office reviewed the prison inmate and canteen account reconciliations, which were prepared by the Prison Business Office for the month of February 2022, and found no discrepancies between the reconciliations and the bank statements. The balance in the inmate account was $463,640.56 as of February 28th of 2022. The balance in the canteen checking account was $804,595.61 as of February 28th of 2022. And in addition, as of February 28th, the canteen account owned two certificates of deposit, one valued at $15,000 and the other at $132,343.88, totaling $147,348.88. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. DeBilio. Any questions for the Controller? I'll entertain a motion to approve his report.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The Controller's report for February 2022 is approved. Next, we'll call on Norm McConaughey for the Community Corrections Center report.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the house arrest report for the month of February. Programs totals: house arrest had 164 participants. Juvenile had 10 participants. Program monthly totals: $58,824.54. Year to date, I have a correction on that. It's $111,165.77. Programs expenses: $91,083.37. Program completions were 39. Violations were 10. Outstanding warrants still, one from work release and one for house arrest. And the budget report overall: overtime's at 20%, expenses at 14%, and revenues at 17%. That's my report.
Any questions for Mr. McConaughey? If not, I'll entertain a motion for his report.
So moved.
Second.
Have a second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. McConaughey.
Thanks.
Next, we'll move to the Warden's report. Warden Betty.
Good afternoon, Board.
Afternoon.
The average daily population for February was 654 inmates, 483 were county inmates. For the month of February, we averaged 578 adult males, 1 juvenile male, and 75 adult females. And the average daily population of U.S. Marshal detainees was 171. Our overtime and out-of-county boarding reports are attached. Our staffing update, currently our correctional officer numbers break down to 174 full-time on staff. Right now, we have 10 full-timers that just started their training today. We have 4 individuals out on workers' comp, 1 on continuous FMLA, and 61 with intermittent FMLA. We have 1 officer on administrative leave and 0 vacancies. As of February 28th, 2022, revenue was at 29% and expenses were at 15%. The MAT progress, currently the MAT program at Lackawanna County technically covers only pregnant females with opioid use disorder. However, our medical provider is conducting assessments on a case-by-case basis, and when they can verify an individual as having been participating in an MAT program, attempts are made to continue that. The length of anticipated stay at the prison, compliance with counseling, and submission to random urine drug screens are all contributing factors in the decision-making process that our medical provider applies to potential recipients of our nascent program. Extraordinary occurrence reports, there were 3 since the last prison board meeting. On 2/4, an inmate was on a suicide precaution watch and covered his cell's camera with obstructing materials, and he refused to remove the materials. Attempts to gain this individual's compliance were met with agitation and aggression from him, and a decision was made to transfer him to another cell so the cell camera could be cleaned up to ensure proper supervision of his behavior. His conduct then started to escalate, and the staff had to administer the pepper ball launcher prior to entering the cell. Staff then removed him from the cell and placed him in a ERC, the emergency restraint chair, for the safety of everyone involved. On February 12th, an inmate began to act and talk in an erratic manner while attempting to argue with staff. This individual attempted to physically run away from the officers. He then began to physically resist officers, and for his safety and the safety of staff, he was placed in the emergency restraint chair. And on 2/23, an incident occurred in our booking area. An intoxicated female was in the process of being committed to the jail, and she was uncooperative with staff. Due to concerns for her safety, the shift commander ordered her to be placed in the emergency restraint chair for her safety. Approximately an hour later, she calmed down, agreed to participate in the booking process, and was then removed from the emergency restraint chair with no further incidents. PREA, there was 1 PREA investigation completed in the month of February. The claim was inmate on inmate sexual harassment allegation, and it was deemed unfounded. The results of that were sent to the district attorney's office. And this concludes my report.
Thank you, Warden. Anybody have any questions for the Warden?
I do. What
Okay.
is the current COVID number at the prison?
Our staff stands at 0, and our inmate population, we have 1 individual who came into the facility positive for COVID. I believe that his time period is over with, his quarantine time period, so technically 0.
The cameras at the prison have an infrared aspect to them, is that accurate?
Not all cameras, but some do, yes.
And the infrared, we were actually able to pay for those cameras via COVID because the whole point was to prevent an outbreak in your prison of COVID, correct?
The point was to see if anybody had an elevated temperature, which would then allow us to pull that person aside and see if there were other symptoms, maybe have the person test it.
And I sent an email on January 3rd, and I remember that day because it was my birthday, that I was informed by Deputy Warden Shanley that when he was on medical leave for approximately 3 months, October, November, December, that the infrared portion of the cameras were not activated. Were you aware of that?
After he had sent that to you, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I received from the IT department all the emails concerning that, and you responded. I basically sent an email to you and the deputy wardens and asked if this was correct, whose responsibility it was, and why it was not done. And you responded 3 different times. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And the first time you wrote that, a policy was going to be developed in order to avoid a HIPAA right violation. And that quote, apparently, and this happens all the time here, there's some miscommunication on the issue. Do you remember writing that?
Vaguely, not in those words, but something along those lines, sure.
And then you also indicated that you asked Deputy Warden Orzell to grab this bull by the horns, and that she has been tasked with putting together a policy on this matter. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
That email is dated January 12th. Then you sent another email shortly thereafter, January, let's see here. I'll just get my dates right here. Actually, the first one that was January 12th, but that was not the first one. The first one you sent was you sent two on January 6th. And again, you noted that a policy was supposed to be done, and in order to avoid some form of HIPAA violation, and that it would fall under the DW of operations. And then, like I said, on January 12th, you indicate that it was a misunderstanding. Have you to date determined who, if anyone, was responsible for not having those cameras activated?
Yes, I have.
And who was that?
It was Deputy Warden Shanley.
And Deputy Warden Shanley went out on medical leave, is that accurate?
Yeah,
So when he went out on medical leave, you as the warden, wouldn't it be your responsibility to make sure that all the activities and tasks that he was undergoing at the time of his leave were taken care of?
I guess you could say that. Yeah, everything always falls under me.
So then the responsibility would be on you.
That's fine.
Okay. And during the 5-week period, I believe, of December 6th, 2021 to January 20th, 2022, you had 147 inmates who tested positive for COVID. Do you recall that?
I recall 70.
70, I remember you telling me at one time, but during the
There may have, yeah,
period, there were about 147.
there could have been. I recall at one point in time there were 70 in early January.
And that coincides with the fact that the cameras were not put on. Is that accurate?
I don't think that the cameras detect COVID.
The cameras detect fever, which then allow you to isolate people, correct?
If it's determined that there's COVID involved, yeah, you don't get isolated for having a fever.
But the cameras serve a purpose.
They do,
Okay. And was a policy ever generated?
yes.
And when was that generated and by whom?
I'm thinking maybe mid-January. I don't have a date on it off the top of my head.
Do you know who did it?
It would have been written up by Deputy Warden Orzell.
Well, Deputy Warden Orzell on November 29, 2021, she had sent a email to Brent Cooper, who was her contact at the vendor, and asked him if he had any type of policies that she could follow. And it went back and forth where he was trying to find her one, but he really couldn't find a sample for her. And then on 12/21/2021, she followed up again and said, as you know, in November, I started gathering info on the thermal cameras in order to develop a policy regarding the thermal cameras. So that was in December of 2021. And then following my email of January 3rd, she responds to an email from, I believe it's Jason Toludo, who's a Lieutenant Toludo.
Yes.
And he says to her, I heard you were writing the policy for the cameras, and she responds on January 10th stating, I don't believe I am writing the policy on the thermal cameras. I thought Captain Walsh and Lieutenant Carilla were working on that. Can you tell me, it seems as though she had changed her position because she was clearly working on the policy in November and December, but then after I brought it to her attention that the cameras weren't activated, then she indicated that she wasn't working on it. Did you look into that matter?
The reports that were given to me were that initially Deputy Warden Shanley had taken charge of the cameras because they are a security issue. He had cited concerns about potential HIPAA violations. He wanted to have a policy written up to ensure no one's confidentiality was breached. Unfortunately, he then went out on an extended leave. That information was not relayed to anyone, but we were initially told that Lieutenant Carilla and Captain Walsh were tasked with writing that out. There was a miscommunication there because they didn't interpret it as a task with writing policy and procedure. Lieutenant Carilla wrote up a short, brief training for people how to read this, what to do when this happens, and Captain Walsh said he had no knowledge of it whatsoever.
well, as of November 29th, 2021, Colleen Orzel, the Deputy Warden of Operations, said, do you have any information on the thermal cameras that were installed in the prison? I have to work on some policies for them, and I'm looking for a starting point. So as of November, she knew that it was brought to her attention, and I'm assuming as warden, although I shouldn't assume anything, that it was brought to your attention that a policy needed to be done, and yet through November and December, a policy was not done, and the cameras were not turned on until Deputy Warden Shanley returned from leave on the week of December 20th. Is that accurate?
No, it's not. A policy didn't need to be done. There was no potential breach of anyone's confidentiality. A reading of an elevated temperature doesn't indicate any medical condition at all.
I agree. So why then were these emails from Deputy Warden Orzel putting off activating the cameras based upon her statement that she had to do a policy for HIPAA to prevent possible HIPAA violations?
She was probably following through on what we were just discussing, the fact that Deputy Warden Shanley felt a little uncomfortable about HIPAA, and she was looking to develop a policy to address that, and a policy was developed by I believe, mid-January.
I agree that there was no that I don't see any potential HIPAA violation. I'm just wondering why the camera sat there not in use when you're Deputy Warden of Operations and you were aware of it, and then coincidentally, we have a spike in COVID cases at the prison. Do you have a reason for that?
Yeah, unbeknownst to me, and I don't know, I can't speak for Deputy Warden Orzel, we didn't know there was essentially a switch that could just be flicked to activate things, and it was ordered to be turned off. We didn't know that, policy or not.
As a warden, don't you think you should know that, especially?
That would have been nice if the Deputy Warden had told me that, yes.
So you're putting it on him and not on yourself?
I-
Don't you think it is your responsibility, especially in light of the fact that we're in a pandemic?
And the pandemic would have still happened anyway.
Right, but we could have potentially prevented some of these positive cases. And by failing to activate the infrared aspect of the camera, we did in fact actually put people at risk, did we not?
If that's your interpretation, that's not mine.
Interpretation, it's the actual truth.
No, the actual truth is that's the world of supposition, and I don't wander there. I deal with what I have in front of me.
So you don't accept accountability for the fact that they were never activated?
No.
That's all I have, thank you.
Warden Betty, on the MAT, do you, or can you find out the numbers of MAT inmates or inmates who are receiving MAT? Do you know that, or can you find that out?
I don't know that. I would check with our medical provider, WellPath, and get the numbers.
Thank you. And do you know the type of medical assistance they are getting, meaning the medicine they are getting, the form of it?
No, I would be guessing it.
Can you just let me know that? I think
Absolutely.
it's a worthy program, but I'd like to know more about it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? As long as we're talking about MAT, it was something I was going to bring up later, but I received a call on Monday from a representative from the Wright Center, and they've received a 3-year grant. And part of it is looking at MAT in the criminal justice system. So they are putting together an advisory board. And I'd like to have you, Warden, look across your staff, and I'll give you the contact information for this individual. His name is Owen Doherty, and touch base with him, and I think it's worthwhile. You probably want to have somebody from WellPath in the loop on that as well, since they're the ones that are administering.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay? Any other questions for the warden? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the warden's report.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so next on the agenda is new business, so I see a personnel-related discussion.
Judge, I was wondering if we could flip those, talk about old business first. I tried to tell Tracy, but she had already published it. I think it would work better that way. If you have
Well,
an objection.
let's just see if there's any other new business.
I have new business.
You do?
I have a number of personnel issues that need to be discussed.
Well, we can do those in executive session.
Well, I mean, the rules don't really state that. The rules state that we can ask either at the executive session, I'm talking about number 4, 5, or at a prison board meeting.
Well, the
I feel
executive
like no one's
session.
gonna be held accountable if we keep doing these things behind closed doors.
Well, the rules allow for executive session when we talk about legal matters and personnel matters. So if we're going to be discussing either of those, I would want to go into executive session.
Then let's do it.
So we will. Any other new business? I have a piece of new business that I wanted to bring up. As everybody is acutely aware, there's an issue about a key to the prison. And so I took it upon myself to reach out to a private investigator, and I want to bring it to the board for a proposal to hire him to conduct an outside investigation as to the origins of the issue concerning the key.
So you'll discuss the key, which is about me, in open public forum, but anything involving anyone else, you want to do behind closed doors. Why don't you ask your warden, he should know where the keys.
Well, we did, okay? We asked him at the last meeting, and there's a divergence of accounts.
Not a
So,
divergence, it's him and his lack of being able to remember anything when he has to be held accountable. He, as the warden, would have to give permission to his maintenance department to make a key. We're talking about an issue that occurred 2 years ago, and that was resolved over a year ago. No one had brought it up. The only reason it's being brought up now is to deflect from the issues that we have, which we have real serious issues going on at the prison currently that no one wants to talk about in front of anybody, but you want to waste taxpayers' money about a key that literally would only open one door to get me past the punch-in pad, or whatever you call it, the beep pad where you have to beep to be let in. No access to the security parameters, no access to the inmates, no access to the offices, no access to anybody. But that's what you want to focus on, as opposed to the fact that rights are being violated left and right over there.
well, it's what I want to focus on at this particular moment. I have consulted with this individual. His name is James Salima. He's a retired detective from the city of Pittston. He's a licensed public investigator and has been for about 20 years. And he's done work in Lackawanna County and been approved by the courts, and has indicated that he would charge the government rate of $75 an hour.
So you want to investigate an issue that's moot, and you want to investigate an issue by a private investigator on the outside rather than going to the maintenance department first and discussing it with Lieutenant Ciafone. As well as the fact that the warden, again, if he claims he did not know, which he did, but then why aren't we holding him accountable for not realizing that keys were being made by his maintenance department and handed out?
If the investigation reveals that, then he will be held accountable.
And I want to know where that is a violation of anything. I mean, it did not permit me to enter secured parameters. We have badges that let us in the government center, the courthouse after hours, the 911 center. I have a sticker on my windshield to get us into the 911 center, the back way. So I don't understand what this issue is. Is this just a witch hunt? I mean, is this what we're doing? We want to continue to light me on fire over and over again about a key that I never even asked for, never used, and don't have?
Why don't you just answer who gave you the key?
I don't remember who gave me the key. I don't remember.
That's
I
why.
told you
That's
what I
why we
did
need.
remember.
That's why we
I remember
need.
being in the room and
Therefore, we
somebody
need
saying
to-
that they were going to get a key from maintenance.
That's why we need to find
Figure it
out.
out.
And
Okay.
then ask the warden.
That's all.
He was there. See if he remembers 2 years ago. I don't remember what I wore or ate yesterday.
I believe that's the purpose of the investigation, to find all these things out.
That's
Over
all.
something that occurred 2 years ago. What is the purpose of it? What is the purpose of it exactly?
To find out who produced the key for you.
It's a further witch hunt against me and others at the prison that have been targeted and who have noticed the county of a lawsuit. So we're gonna just keep giving this individual ammunition to use against us. And we're gonna use the taxpayer dollars to hire an investigator to try to find something out that I can't remember because it occurred 2 years ago.
So you don't remember, but you know some personnel has a lawsuit and you're identifying it as an unnamed personnel?
Deputy Warden Krista Purvis filed a notice of intent to file a lawsuit.
So what does she have to do with the key?
Because my understanding is, from all the whispers that people are telling me, is that everyone thinks it was a conspiracy and that she gave me the key. I was in a room with Deputy Warden.
Did she give you the
Krista
key?
Purvis. I don't remember who gave it to me. I do remember that my badge was dropped off to me on my desk, and I said to Tim Betty, how did you get me a badge when you didn't take my picture? And he said, we got it from the sheriff's office. I don't remember if the key was delivered to me. I don't remember if it was handed to me. Frankly, it was inconsequential. I had just taken office, and I've been given badges to the airport, the prison, all the buildings. So I didn't think it was really that much of an issue. Until 2 years later, when you bring it up, for whatever reason that was.
Commissioner, you mentioned the sheriff's office. What did you say part we played in that?
What did I say?
You mentioned the sheriff's office, but I didn't hear what you said after that.
Did I mention the sheriff's office?
Yeah,
That's-
you did.
What did I just say?
You indicated essentially that.
Oh, no. I said the way I received my ID from the prison was it was on my desk after a meeting. We had a meeting in my conference room. And I remember going into my office and seeing my badge there from the prison. And I believe it was Warden Betty who had put it there. And I said, how did you give me a badge without my picture being taken? He said, we just used the one from, I thought each department has to take your picture like they did at the airport. But they don't. They just get the picture from your office, apparently. So I don't know if the key was delivered to me in the same way. It was an inconsequential issue for me because it did not grant me access to any secure parameters, which the warden did confirm.
I appreciate that it's inconsequential to you.
And how is an
It is
investigator
not-
to find something out that neither me or the warden remember? Is he going to magically put himself in a time machine and go back to that day?
We'll find that out with the result of his investigation.
Okay, well,
It's
since we
not-
discussed this, then I think we should discuss the other matters. I mean.
No, we're not going to discuss the
Oh,
other
we really
matters here.
discuss me in public forum. We can't discuss the fact that he's had Captain Tim Walsh out on paid administrative leave at the taxpayer's buck without telling him for the last 16 days the reason that he's being put on leave. We can't discuss that. Or the fact that he violated FMLA with regard to Krista Purvis, or the fact that he retaliated against her and brought her in for an investigation over a crucifix after he was already put on notice that she was going to file a lawsuit against the county for retaliation and targeting.
This is why we keep talking about these things, is because
Yeah,
you
we
bring
are,
them up.
Because you gave power to somebody who's not competent to handle HR matters.
You bring them up.
Wasn't even informing the commissioners who run the county or their HR department as to why these people are even being reprimanded.
Okay,
Can I just ask, as county solicitor, and can I make a request to the prison board chairman to please go into executive session with regards to personnel issues?
we are. We're going to go, okay? I'm just trying to get straight on this investigation. So I would like a motion, yeah.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do I have on the question, all in favor?
Aye.
I will vote in favor of it because I did nothing wrong.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. David Salfinelli, you'll be the point person with Mr. Salima. Okay? So now we can go into executive session. I would respectfully ask everybody to clear the room, please. Okay, good evening. We're back from executive session, and a note for purposes of the record that we discussed various personnel issues at the prison. And I think I'm remiss because we did have an executive session out in between our January and February meetings, and I don't think I put it on
February
the
1st.
record. It was February 1st, and I didn't put it on the record then, so
Yes.
I'll put that on the record, so. Okay. So, we did our new business. Is there any old business?
I just had a comment, Judge.
Okay.
Earlier,
Before you do that,
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
Commissioner Dominic has to leave.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a personal matter at 2:00 that I can't miss, and I have like 3 minutes, but I just want to say that I am not opposed, and I did vote yes for the investigator. I don't have, I'm just frustrated. This job is frustrating, every aspect of it, some more than others. It's just not an easy job, and I get frustrated. And I'm my father's daughter. I'm very Italian, and I get my little short-tempered. But you know, I have no problem with that. That's why I voted yes. And I did talk to Gary individually. I just wanted to say I did not call the board members corrupt. What I said was it was corrupt, meaning I felt as though that the way a certain HR issue was handled and the way things went at an executive session on February 1st and the policies that were immediately developed thereafter by the board, that I felt that process was corrupt. Not these individual board members, all of whom I respect. So I do want to clear that up. And I think we had a good conversation. I aired my frustration and vented, and it felt good. And hopefully we'll move forward for the betterment of the prison and the county and the inmates and the employees and the residents. Did I miss anybody? So,
Thank you.
peace out. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Are you gonna have a quorum now? Or you don't
Yes.
have anything
No,
to
we're-
vote
no,
on?
yeah, no, we're good.
Okay.
We're good, thanks.
Then vote to adjourn at some point.
Where's the warden? Warden, you, I think, had mentioned to me the other day, you have a proposal for a hire? Yes, please.
Thank you for reminding me, Your Honor. Yeah, we did. We advertised for Deputy Warden of Security. Bill Shanley was the Deputy Warden of Security. He had retired effective February 6th. And so we had an ad out there. We got a very strong field that put in for it. And we conducted interviews of several individuals. And I have one individual in particular that I would like to recommend to the board for hiring. I don't know the proper policy, but I'm ready to say his name, give you a briefing on his background, anything along those lines.
Please do.
All right. His name is Dave Piga. Dave was
How do you spell that?
23, Pigga.
Okay, thank you.
Dave is a 23-year employee of the Lackawanna County Prison. He had retired in June or July of 21. He's a former shift commander, and also for 13 years, he was our training sergeant. He trained approximately 80% of the staff that are there right now have trained under Dave Piga. On top of that, Dave holds a Bachelor of Science degree in social work, but he is very, very familiar with the policy and procedures because of that training background. He has done reviews and revisions of policy and procedure. He's done staff interventions, discipline as a lieutenant and shift commander. He's also, I believe he worked part-time with Dunmore Police for about 20 years or so. He's a former member of the Lackawanna County Drug Task Force. Going back. That'll be telling you Dave's age, and he wouldn't be happy with that. So, but I know Dave, worked hand in hand with Dave for literally decades at the jail. He is, in my opinion, a great fit for the position. And again, with that background of his, as a former shift commander, lieutenant, training sergeant, CEO for years, policy and procedure experience, to me, he was head and shoulders above the other individuals. No offense to anyone there. This was an excellent candidate for that position.
And have you done the appropriate vetting of him, security-wise?
Yeah, again, he just stopped working for the county prison in July.
Okay,
I mean, we would, as just a normal procedure, still do our normal, criminal history check. And just like any other new employee with the county, he would have to go through the same steps that any new employee would have to go through. If, again, I'm looking to see if the board would be in favor of authorizing that, and then I would fill out the appropriate documentation and send it to the HR department, and ultimately it'll hit the commissioner's desks.
Okay. So, you're satisfied?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion to,
I may just have
sure.
a couple
Oh, that's
questions.
right. I'm sorry. No.
If I don't. So, Warden Betty, this is based on your recommendation after interviewing all other candidates, and you feel that this individual is the most qualified for the position?
We had interviewed 5 candidates. We had, I believe we had 10 applications.
But you feel this is the most qualified individual based upon your review?
Yes.
Are you aware of any personal relationship or family relationship the individual has with anybody on the board or any county commissioner?
No.
Were you asked by any member of the board or a county commissioner to hire this specific individual?
No.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the hiring of David Piga.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay. On the question? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody from the public wish to address the board? We're not going to take any questions about how much time our executive session lasted, so, but,
Comment on, the back and forth between Debbie, you guys, any comment on what we all thought?
no, I think you saw it, so you can develop your own judgment. I don't speak for anybody else, but I don't know if anybody feels differently, but,
I'll just have a comment at the end under members'
okay.
new business.
All right.
not new business, Members' other business.
Deb?
Deb Barrows from Scranton.
Deb, can you pull it down a little bit, please? Thank you.
The best news was about Dave Piga. He was our training sergeant for all the 15 or so book volunteers that we had. He's just wonderful. I'm just so happy about that. I had 3 things to comment on. One was at Christmas, we were able to get information about some of the female inmates who had young children at home, and by we, it was just a joint effort that we provided really good Christmas gifts for them and delivered them out. It was really a good program. And the we was Asbury Church, the Scranton Area Ministerium. Colleen Orzel was helpful to help us find the names. So it was a successful program, and that was good. Being that this is a county jail, not everybody was in Scranton, and we had to find transportation to take these gifts to, I will read that part, from Mount Pocono, Allentown, Avoca, Drums, Dunmore, and sections of Scranton. So it was quite an undertaking. Of course, I'm interested, how's the chaplain thing coming along? And when are the religious programs going to be in the jail?
Well, I think we can really look towards reinstituting them shortly now, since with the, at least the current abatement of COVID. So I think we'll be able to get them back on track. As to any progress on a chaplain, I don't know if the warden's had any recent communication from anybody or any, I know we had some meetings with some, but Warden, anything? No, we don't. Okay, all right. So, but I think certainly with the religious services, I think we can start getting those back in,
Good.
okay?
And the last thing is, of course, you know, my concern is for the inmates in there, and this is just an example of, this was one of our Times Tribune articles a while ago, but one of the suicides in our prison was Mark Glaze. And how we first heard about it was from the Washington Post, and the New York Times, before it was ever in the Scranton newspaper. And he was quite an international figure in gun control, worked with Sandy Hook and all that. There's lots of background information on him. But nevertheless, everybody in there should be treated equal, even though he was a very good, high-impact person. That shouldn't have mattered, everybody. But I just want to read one comment from the paper coverage about his, here we go. Glaze was charged with driving under the influence and other offenses.
Bev,
I'm
can you
sorry.
speak closer to this?
Yeah, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah, sorry. After the police say he rear-ended a truck on Interstate 81 in Dunmore, here we go. He fled after the crash and was taken into custody by officers in Scranton as he tried to jump into Roaring Brook, police said. Now, okay, then, like every other individual who comes into the county prison, Glaze underwent mental and behavioral assessment when he arrived. Our staff followed all the proper protocols, and they deemed there was nothing out of the ordinary with him. Nothing of that nature came up. Well, isn't it a red flag that somebody's willing to jump in the Naog Gorge and commit suicide right then and there, and then they deemed that nothing was unusual? And not just this case, but what is the criteria for, obviously he wasn't on a suicide watch. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist or anything, but just common sense. I hear stories, which I can't name names, but I have the names. People in there that have mental conditions and don't get their medicine right away. And then they act out because they're not properly medicated. Then they're put in the chair, which I can't imagine being strapped in that chair. I don't know. So I'll leave it at that. Just my concern for treatment in there of people. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I don't see anybody else coming up, so go to members' other business. I think Controller DeBillio, you said you want, okay.
Something, Judge. As Commissioner Dominic mentioned earlier, she and I had a conversation, private conversation, earlier today at her request, and she told me that the local newspaper quoted her incorrectly, and that she did not refer to prison board members as being corrupt. I told her, well, that's good to know. Thank you for that. I also told her that she deserved credit for the improvements that she had a major hand in making at the prison. But just during the executive session, I told her that I was going to mention one other thing, and that is the fact that recently our Lackawanna County Prison has been referred to as a cesspool. The taxpayers and citizens of Lackawanna County need to know that their prison is not a cesspool. It doesn't deserve to be described that way. I don't believe it was a cesspool before any one of these board members was on the board, and I don't believe it's a cesspool now. The reason is because the employees and the administration work very hard to make our prison run efficiently. It is a prison. No prison is a Taj Mahal, but our prison is not a cesspool. And I believe the employees of our prison, from the warden to the correctional officers to maintenance, did not deserve for the cesspool reference. And that's basically it. I just wanted to make that comment to the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Guys, for the record, it was Ms. Dominic who made the reference to the prison cesspool.
Yeah, that's who it was.
Just want to make sure that the paper wasn't being, that's something she said.
Perish the thought. Okay, well, that's as good a lead-in to any as a motion for adjournment. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Second.
On the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.